Hey everybody, Jim Burke, Acro Critique time. Today I'm going to be looking at Chris Buell, who's flying his Giles 202 to the 2020 IAC Sportsman Known Sequence. Take it away, Chris. First thing we'll watch is the wing wags. And what we want to see is we want to have the pilot push the nose down very aggressively and do some nice crisp wing wags. And what I noticed from watching your video before is you're using maybe about half aileron. You could use all the aileron and make it even crisper. It looks nice. The nose stays pretty much where it needs to be, but does swing around a little bit. Keep working on that. First figure, going to pull to 45. And right here, there's really nothing left to see out of the window in the front once the horizon leaves your view. So go ahead and look out the side window at that point. I'll show you right about there. There's nothing left to see out the front. Look out the side so you can make sure you're at the right angle. And you'll see that you end up a little bit steep, which by the way is not really a problem. I often tell people to be a little bit steep in these situations, but we want to do that in a controlled way. We don't want it to be a happy accident. So when you look over, you'll see you've already sort of stopped the pull, and that's a little bit too late. We want to look over there earlier. You just stay looking out there. You can look out the side window some more here. And now we want to push very smartly to a line that's level, but remember you're going slow. So the nose will be very high on this level line. And we want this line to last only a few seconds. About 3 seconds seems to be about perfect. So we want to be slow on top of that. We want to have the nose real high so we slow down. The reason we only want to have about 3 seconds is anytime we're high and slow, the wind will push us quite a bit. And when the wind's pushing us, it's hard to control exactly where we're going to be. So if we do a 3-second line with the nose nice and high from a very slow airspeed, we have a good opportunity to control the drop of the spin and kind of time everything so we know the spin will always drop in the right part of the box. We don't want to get blown downwind too much during these sequences, so we control that. Okay, spin entry, pull the nose up, let the plane stall, and as the stall happens, we add rudder. No aileron, just rudder at your skill level. And I would say maybe you're a little early on the rudder just from watch that. Let's look at it again. We want to make sure that these things happen simultaneously. These 3 things, the yaw, the roll, and the pitch. The judges are looking for all 3 things at one time. If they see the yaw happen before the pitch, that's a deduction. And I think yours are happening just about the same time, but we have to really show the judges what we want them to see, and they can see the yaw more easily than they can see the pitch. So what we do is we let the pitch develop a little bit before we add the yaw in. So here we go, put the nose up, that's good. Rudder goes in, and I think you can see if you watch it again, the rudder comes in, and it doesn't really look like there's a lot of pitch at that point. So the next thing I want to talk about real quick is the way the nose swings down here, and then up here, and then back down. And this isn't really a problem because that's not a criteria, but you can control that a bit with the elevator. All that's happening here is the aircraft doesn't immediately stop when it performs a spin. It's still moving forward a little bit in a ballistic arc throughout the spin. And because that arc is ballistic and it's still moving forward through that arc a little bit, the nose wants to line itself up with the rest of the airplane, and it then, when the plane comes back around for that first rotation of the spin, the nose just comes up. That's all that's happening there. And if you just use the rudder and keep the elevator back, you'll get that kind of up and down motion during the spin. If you get high enough to do it, you could do a 4-turn or 5-turn spin. You'll see that doesn't happen anymore because eventually the spin develops and the plane's going basically straight down. But for competition, we don't do that many rotations. We might do only 2 at most, and really 1.5 is about the most you'll see. So I don't think you have to fix that, but it's something to know you could play with as you get more advanced, that you can control that, that tendency for the nose to swing up and down. And now, at this point, are you vertical down? It's hard to know unless you look out the side window. Think about doing that, though I know it's not easy to look out the side window on a vertical down line when you're beginning. The next figure is figure 3, which is a wedge. Pull vertical, and again, you're looking out the front when there's not really a reason to. The side window has everything you need at that point, and pull to 45, and I think you were negative on that line. Now we have a 2 of 4, which I think looks pretty good. Yeah, I like that. And then I don't really have a big problem with that. I think that's a pretty good figure. Next figure is figure 4, which is a Humpty. Pull vertical, looks good. And you are on a good vertical line, and then right there, you look forward again. So you have a tendency to look in places that are not helping you. Be aware of that. You should always know where you're supposed to look, and when you're watching your videos, make sure you're looking where you think you should be looking. Make sure you're doing what you need to do. In this case here, once we lose the horizon again, right there, we should be looking out the side window. Now, I don't do that anymore in Unlimited as much as I used to because I've started to get worried about my neck. So I've stopped looking at the side window as much as I used to. I still look, but I'm not as keen on looking out there all the time. But at Sportsman, you need to look out the side window a lot to make sure you're where you need to be. Okay, so now we should look out the side window here. And now once we lock that in, that's pretty good. Looks pretty vertical to me. The trick is to keep looking and keep the line maintained. But instead, you look forward, and as soon as you do, look at how negative you got on that line. So don't look up there, just look at the line there. Look at the sight. And now, time to go over the top for the Humpty. Now, we have to pop off the line, float, and then pull very hard on the back end. Otherwise, we get going fast, and that Humpty just drags out. It takes up altitude, and it's no longer a constant radius, which is a deduction. So that's what we're looking for there. And I think you're probably what we call closing low there, which is a very common error in Sportsman. Okay, that's figure 4. Now, figure 5, we have a hammerhead. And again, very important that we're vertical, truly vertical. Look out the side window. That looks pretty vertical there, but as we get towards the end, and you look forward again, no need to, now we're negative. Now, once you're negative, you're actually in a little bit of a dangerous position in Sportsman to be negative on a hammerhead. That's not dangerous at that angle, but it is the place where people can end up in an inadvertent inverted spin as they get slow and they're on their back. If they try and fix it by pushing forward when they add the rudder, then that can become an inverted spin, which is dangerous. It's disorienting. So we don't want to do that. And for that reason, if you're in a position where you're negative like that, I'll just tell you, frankly, the hammerhead's probably not going to be very good anyway. And it's better to get your lines perfect. So I would say it's okay to just stop doing the hammerhead at that point and set yourself back up, or go up higher and really practice how to make the hammerhead as good as you can when you're inverted a little bit. But I don't think you should be playing with that very much near the ground at the Sportsman level. Try and keep your lines a lot straighter on the way up there. And because you're on your back, as the plane swings over, the way it works out, you end up having to push a bit here to restore the line. That's normal. Now right here, I'm going to say something kind of interesting, I think, is if you paint your panel a darker color, you won't have so much of this reflection. Light colored panels cause this kind of problem. Light colored interiors cause all this reflection in the canopy. And it's pretty distracting. So I don't think you have to. But if it bothers you, then think about just making something, even a vinyl wrap inside the airplane would probably help a lot on the panel. Okay, that's the hammerhead. Now the next figure is figure 6, which is an Immelmann. And you can probably do this one at about just after the halfway point in the box. You don't have to go all the way downwind. And in a Giles, you can pull this one pretty tight, and probably should, because, okay, I have some things to talk about there too, but what you don't want to have happen, if the wind's blowing this way, and you're going downwind, and you make a big Immelmann, then what can happen is you get that first part done, and then the plane just, as it gets slower, it kind of starts backing up. It doesn't really look like a half loop. The shape of it gets funny, and the judges, they judge it according to the shape they see on the ground. So the trick to get good scores with that half loop is, first of all, to be going fast, and second of all, to pull really tight. That's basically the trick. If you're in a clip wing Cub, there's not much you can do but sort of pull as hard as as hard as you're able to, and then just kind of relax the pull up at the top and try and bring it back as much as you can, because the tendency is to just kind of slide over there. And downwind Immelmanns often look like they're not very round because of the effects of wind. So in your case, you're in a Giles, and you might want to consider setting yourself up with more energy for figure 5, so you can go higher and come down a little bit lower and get your airspeed up really high, nice and high. And you could even consider, as you leave that hammerhead, when you pull to the level, don't pull the nose up quite so high. Leave it down a little bit so you don't lose any of that airspeed. You don't want to go back to cruise. You want to stay at a higher than cruise airspeed as you go in the Immelmann. Okay, that's some thoughts there for you. And then as we get near the top here, you have to finish the half loop before you do the half roll. It's not acceptable to blend them. That is a deduction. You must finish the half loop and then do the half roll. You're actually just barely blending the two. Figure 7 is a 180. And here's an example of a very, very soft aileron input, maybe 1/8 or 1/10 the amount of aileron that you have available to you in this airplane. But what I like is you're rolling and sticking the point. You're not a victim. You're not letting the plane pull you in the turn. You're rolling and stopping it. That's good. And your roll out, the rate of that roll, must match the rate of the roll in. Your roll in to the 180 is slower than your roll out. That is a deduction. I would say probably about a point. So let's take a look at it again. Here's your roll in. And you hold it, which is good, and you pull. Maybe you're holding it a bit too long, just a touch, but it shows good control. And now we hold the line and roll back, and this roll back is probably about twice as fast maybe. Next is a split S, figure 8. Again, here we're blending. You must make distinct motions, half roll and pull, and it's even better to half roll and just a tiny bit of pause before you pull to show control. A good coach will work with you on that, and in the example of the 180, we might have you roll and stop and hold it for 3 seconds, and then do your 180 and then hold it for 3 seconds, and then roll out. But on the day of competition, or shortly before that, we'll make sure you can roll and pull. We don't want a long pause anymore, but we give you pauses. We make you hold things so we know you can. In the case of this Immelmann and split S, I probably want to see you pull, complete, wait, and then half roll. And the same thing on the split S. Roll, pause, pull, just to make sure you know that you have to do them distinctly. We don't want them blended. All right. Here we go, blended. And that's at least a 2 or 3 point deduction right there. Figure 9, a loop. And loops are simple. We pull very hard to whatever G position we want, and we sit there dumbly, like I say, until we're at the float position, which is about maybe here. Now we float over the top, then we bring the stick back to where it was before, hold it dumbly, and wait. And when we get to level, we pop it. You're not popping it here. You're sort of gently moving it. It needs to be popped. Figure 10 is a half Cuban. And it's the same mechanism as the loop. We're basically doing a loop until we get to the 45. Half roll. This looks good. I don't have a complaint about any of this stuff. A little soft on some of the pulls, a little weak on some of the rolls. Those are technique things. I don't want to be judgmental of a sportsman pilot. Hope it doesn't sound that way. But you have a Giles, so you have a plane that can be flown very aggressively. And as you get more and more time in this airplane and you get more comfortable, start using all the deflection you have and start making your pulls so it really pops and looks crisp. It is not a criteria for competition, but it does affect your scores. It flat out does. And sometimes people in sportsmen think the judges are nitpicking on little things when the reality is kind of the big picture, the overall effect of your flight. There's an emotion to this, to judging, whether there should be or not. There is. And it's important to play to that and think about how your flight looks, the tempo of it and the pacing of it, the control you're showing. Those make a difference, at least in presentation points. Okay, we have a 90-degree turn now. And again, we should roll quickly. Pop, should be rolled, and now pull. Looks good. A little bit of yaw swing. You know, that feeling like this, that'll go away the more you do it. Just keep focusing on it. And now we have a full roll. And this is a pretty good roll. It's there's something in there where I can see at the beginning you're pulling the nose up, and then you're pushing. Here, watch now. We'll watch it again. Pull and then push. I see that push around there, and I can tell from looking at that it won't feel exactly like you're just rolling around your solar plexus or some point in your abdomen. It will feel a little bit like you're pulling into the roll and then pushing as you come around, and the plane kind of does one of these things instead of rolling. It'll look like this. You can see some of that from the ground, and it won't look perfect. You won't get a 10. You should be able to score a 9, 9.5, or 10 on figure 12 with more practice. I don't have really great advice for you because you're close enough that you're kind of in the area where you have to just do it a lot more and feel it a lot more and decide, try different things to figure out how to make it feel better and look better. You're not making any huge fundamental errors. It's just a matter of practice, I think. So keep at it. And then we have our wag out. And those are a little more aggressive. So I think you were happy. You were happy and you were thinking, aha, I did a good job. But, come into the sequence and really pop that stick and get those wags because you're flying a Giles. Nothing rolls like a Giles. My extra doesn't roll like a Giles. So you should be able to pop, 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 and really get yourself into that. It'll look really nice. And all your rolls could be done with that kind of assertiveness. Why not do that? Other than that, those sort of basics, I think it's really about your lines. Judges do not notice big errors in roll. You can make a 5, 10, or even 15-degree error in your rolls, and a judge won't notice. You had that this last roll, you didn't roll perfectly back to level. They won't notice that, believe it or not. We focus on it a lot, but it probably wouldn't be seen unless you're coming right at them. But if you make an error in a line and you are 5 degrees off, they notice that and give you huge deductions, more probably than what the rule book calls for. If you're 5 degrees off, you might get a 2 or 3 point deduction on the figure. It's just the way it is. People can see some things easier than others, and they try and follow the rule book. They might even know the rule book. They might think they're following the rule book, but having watched a lot of this and coached people, been to a lot of contests, I promise you they don't actually perfectly follow the rule book. You have to focus on these things like lines because they're so visible. And just general control of the airplane. I think your flying is very good. I think you can, just keep at it and get better and better. And I think practice is really the key. But I can help you out some more if you have time to send me another video after you've practiced some more. Your airplane will take you all the way through advanced pretty easily. So you might as well get really good at the verticals, because eventually you'll want to learn how to do a vertical roll. And you cannot do a good vertical roll unless you first are vertical. It's absolutely required. There's no way to fix not being vertical during a roll. It's a mess. Great job. Very, very nice to work with you. I hope that helps out. And thanks everybody for stopping by the channel. Very good to see you. I've been taking a break from this for a bit. Got busy with other things, and it's nice to be back doing it. If you want, send me a video and I'll take a look. Thanks everybody. Bye-bye.
Jimmer.com